Coming up this Saturday, me on the Vibe, I'm joined by Guy Griffin of the all-new Black Eyed Sons. The album is, it's full of stars. I mean, you got Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, Charlie Starr of Blackberry Smoke, to name a couple there.
I was so surprised at some, people like Charlie Starr or Stevie from the Fuck Cherry and all that. I was amazed that they knew who I was. When I first met them, we were rehearsing in Putney. I remember it was coming up to a sort of break, and Jim Cregan was there, and everybody else was going off down to the pub, and he said, "Oh, it's great to hear a new band playing in open G tuning." And me and Guy Bailey just looked at each other. What's he talking about? I don't know what he's talking. What's open G tuning? And he said, "Oh, you're not in that?" No. He said, "Oh, it's. Do you want me to show you?" And Guy Bailey says, "I'm off down the pub." So I said, "All right, see ya." And Jim showed me the open G tuning. It's daunting, but it's also so nice to do something new that can be judged on its own merits. It hasn't, people may compare it to past stuff, but it's not that important to me. It is exciting to have something where people can, can't say, "Oh, it doesn't sound like this, doesn't sound like that." I said, "Well, no, it doesn't. It's Black Eyed Sons."
So I'm here with Guy Griffin of Black Eyed Sons. Thank you very much for joining me. Of course, you have this debut album on the way, Cowboys in Pinstripe Suits, coming out at the end of January, which we'll be absolutely diving into. But first, I like to kind of have a look at how things all began for a musician, go back to those early years, because, people look at a complete musician as they are today, and they think, oh my God, how can I ever do that? But everybody starts somewhere, right? Yeah. So how did this kind of journey begin for you? Was there a moment where you thought, this is what I want to do? I want to be a musician. Did you have a moment?
I guess it's probably a familiar story with a lot of musicians. I started off when I was younger. Sports was everything, football and playing football, and until I got to a certain age where I realised, well, I'm not ever going to be a top professional footballer, and what's the next unrealistic ambition to have? And I discovered guitar and rock and roll, and picked up the guitar pretty quick. I sort of dove into it pretty quick, getting into bands, sort of rather than perfecting my playing and my craft. It was a bit more, I guess, more of a punk rock sort of ethos, I suppose, just jumping into it and getting a band and persuading friends that they would make a great bass player or a great drummer, or specifically. The son of the caretaker of my school, I convinced him he'd be a brilliant drummer because he was the only one who had the keys to the cupboard for the drum kit that nobody, I don't think, in our school had ever been allowed near to. It was just from when I was, I guess, from when I was about 15 onwards, I was sort of trying to play in bands and just the usual route back then, just playing in local bands, playing all the local venues. Then you start supporting traveling bands, and then it becomes getting your first break playing in London, which you had to do back then to make it. You had to go to London if you're in the UK, really, and then moving to London. Joining a band, another band with a record deal, and then it just progressed from there, and into the story has unfolded over the years, and lots of ups and lots of downs, and in between,
I think growing up, everybody has that that first band that's like kind of their band almost? It's that one that really resonates with them. Was there one in particular for you growing up?
I think the first band that I really sort of got kind of not obsessed with, but what was my band would have been, I guess, first one would have been Thin Lizzy, I think. And then it sort of, and then it was a lot of bands of that sort of era, Queen and AC/DC, UFO, all that. You get the picture. That, and then it cut. But at the same time, as far as playing in a band, I didn't have the discipline to ever be able to play the guitar in that, to get as good as Scott Gorham or Brian May or. So that sort of led me into, and also playing with older with a lot of people I played in bands with. They were older than me, so you'd get these other influences coming in, and sort of like I wasn't old enough to experience a lot of those bands to go see them live, but people like David Bowie and Mott the Hoople and all that kind of stuff started coming in, but also. One real big influence for me playing with bands was the band Dr. Feelgood and Wilco Johnson, his guitar playing, and I'd seen like Angus Young with AC/DC, this manic guitar player, and I was just like transfixed. And then here's this guy Wilco Johnson, who's just another
just drifting across the stage,
exactly, and but. The beautiful thing about the Dr. Feelgood stuff was that it had that punk sort of energy, but they were playing blues. It was like blues on speed, really, and and it was and you could, basically the first ever song I ever played in a band was a song called I Can Tell, which I thought was a Dr. Feelgood song, but it was them doing a cover of an old blues song. But that was because I'd heard Dr. Feelgood, and so my first band kind of started going down that route, a bit more sort of that sort of route. And then at the time there were bands like Hanoi Rocks, which were a big influence at that time for me. Took me a bit down that route, which took me back into the rock, and sort of rock and roll sort of thing.
Of course, a lot of people will be familiar with you from, your days with the Quireboys, doing that debut album. I mean, you were quite a young man back then. Like you were straight in there immediately. What was that kind of experience like for you, being in the studio? I mean, obviously you were working with like Jim Cregan at the time, who of course, was known with, like working with Rod Stewart. I mean, that must have been quite a moment for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when I look back on it, it's almost like, it's definitely like another life, another lifetime. And obviously, I'd like to think I'm a much different person than I was then. But I was a kid. I was when we made that album in 1989 was when we were making the record, beginning of 89. I'd only just turned 20, so technically I wasn't even old enough to drink. Well, actually not technically, legally I wasn't old enough to drink, but there was a few places where I could, where I could go. There was only a couple of clubs in LA that I couldn't get into, and I had to stay at home while the rest of the band went. But I mean, working with Jim Cregan was fantastic. I remember when he first came to see us, because we were originally going to be doing it with another producer, Last minute, we decided to do it with Jim Cregan and George Tutko. It was a partnership, a team, and we were rehearsing in Putney, I remember, and it was coming up to a sort of break, and Jim Cregan was there, and everybody else was going off down to the pub, and he said, "Oh, it's great to hear a new band playing in open G tuning," and me and Guy Bailey just looked at each other. What's he talking about? I don't know what he's talking. What's open G tuning? And he said, "Oh, you're not in it?" No. He said, "Oh, it's. Do you want me to show you?" And Guy Bailey says, "I'm off down the pub." So I said, "All right, see ya." And Jim showed me the open G tuning, and subsequently, I think on about 3/4 of the tracks on the album, that's what I played in. And, but I hadn't discovered the Keith Richards thing of taking at that time of taking the bottom E string off, so it's a 5-string. So you don't. I left the bottom E on, so like on 7 o'clock, the guitar on 7 o'clock almost sounds like there's like a baritone sax or something, because it's got that drone of the 2 bottom strings tuned together, to the same note. Not realizing it, but it actually created a bit of a sound. And then, so that was the main thing. I think that, I was lucky enough to learn from, working with people like Jim Cregan, and some of the great producers I've worked with along the way. You do learn, especially as a songwriter, you learn what works and how to make a song work. How to cut stuff out of a song that doesn't need to be there.
Of course, jumping forward to where we are today, this new beginning, the Black Eyed Sons. Why was kind of now the right time for you? Like, why did you feel now's the time to have this kind of clean slate, this new beginning?
Well, it's exactly as you're saying. It's creating a clean slate for myself, just and for the rest. Some of the guys in particular in the band. We've had quite interesting 2 or 3 years, and even going further back than that, even to through lockdown. I mean, everybody knows go through all their own personal things through that time. But to me, it was musically a clean slate. But I mean, a lot of stuff, just my whole life really, just starting on trying to start a new chapter, a different way of looking at things, and just making music for kind of like what you're saying when you're younger, trying to get back to that mindset of music for its own sake, just enjoying the actual process. Enjoying being, I'm lucky enough I've got a studio at home here, you can record I'm able to record more or less a whole record if I want at home, in my back garden, but it's nice to have to do it's daunting, but it's also nice to do something new that can be judged on its own merits. It hasn't, people may compare it to past stuff, but it's not that important to me. The past is the past. The whole thing is moving forward and just taking each day as it comes, really, and it is exciting to have something where people can can't say, oh, it doesn't sound like this, doesn't sound like that. I said, well, no, it doesn't. It's Black Eyed Sons, and that became apparent as we were from very early on when we were sort of putting the album together.
I mean, it must feel quite freeing, because it's like now you don't have to I mean, I imagine obviously if you're in the Quireboys, there's that limitation of like, well, we have to have this feel like a Quireboys song. Whereas now you could theoretically go in any direction you feel like going in. I mean, that must be quite freeing. I mean, obviously you've been in the Quireboys since you were quite a young guy, and now you've just got this total clean thing. I suppose you can go in any direction you kind of want to go in now.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just it's just, you know, it's liberating just to be able to, as I said, just to start with a clean slate. And also, once we started working with outside musicians and writers, which I'd always wanted to do, but for various reasons it never happened, you know, just whatever. I won't go into that, but that's what, those things never happen. So now, if I had an idea for a song and I thought, God, this song, it won't work for the Quireboys, but I could imagine Dan Reed singing this song. I called Dan Reed, and so I sent it off to him. He sent something back, which was left field from what I had sent him, and also he wrote wrote the lyric. I had the chorus and I had the melody and the title of the song, So Glorious, but I didn't have any lyrics at all, and he wrote the lyrics, and I'm totally into just working with other people, you know. I mean, one thing, it takes the pressure off, you know. It's like I used to with the last 20 years of the Quireboys, it was always down to me to come in with the 10 songs, and then other people would put their mark on it, or would finish off the lyrics, or what, you know, bits and pieces, but that was the reality, you know. And Paul Guerin would maybe get to write a couple of songs on the album. I mean, he's written 3 songs on this album, and they're fantastic songs, you know. I don't feel the need where I've got to change something just for the sake of it, just to put my name on it, you know. I don't feel like I have to, at this point, prove to anyone that whether I'm able to, you know, whether I'm able to write songs or not. It's I've made plenty of records, but it's just nice to collaborate with people and have things come in, you know, different perspectives and different influences, and it's just, I mean, it's a blessing to be able to, you know, work with some of the people that we've worked with on this, all the people we've worked with on this record. It's just great, you know, and to actually, although I don't have a physical copy in my hand yet, when I get it, it'll be, you know, it'll just be so gratifying, you know, because I've been involved with everything from the artwork to the songs, and just coordinating it and getting all the people, you know, herding cats, you know, working around other people's schedules and stuff, and but it's fine, you know, it's finally done, and we're all really proud of it, and, you know, happy with how it's turned out, I think.
I mean, of course, you know, you've mentioned there the album is, you know, it's full of stars. I mean, you got Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, Charlie Starr of Blackberry Smoke, to name a couple there. How did all of these collaborations come about? I mean, there's, you know, I was going down the track list and there's just one after the other here.
Well, over the years, you know, you bump into people on the road. Some people have known for a long time, and some people you meet along the way, and turns out you've got a lot in common with them, or they're you know, I was so surprised at some, you know, people like Charlie Starr or Stevie from the Blackberry and all that. You know, they were real I was amazed that they knew who I was, you know, when I first met them, you know, and they were just like, well, fans of the music we made, and I couldn't believe it, you know. I got to meet Charlie when he was a few years ago when he was touring over here, and I did a couple of shows with. I was guesting on guitar with a band called Junkyard. Also good friends, you know, and they were supporting Blackberry Smoke, and that's when I started. You know, when I started corresponding with Charlie. You know, after meeting him there, and. Yeah, I can't remember exactly when I asked him, but I had the song that he sang on was a very personal song to me. So, you know, I wanted to choose carefully if I was going to have anybody on it or not. But if he was going to be on anything, it would have been that song. And he was gracious enough to put his amazing guitar on it, but his voice is just phenomenal. You know, just the soul in his voice. And I couldn't have wished for anything better, you know. And I mean, just all the people that are on the album they're all very, very, very talented people, successful people in their own rights, and also just real genuine guys, you know, hard-working people, you know.
I mean, speaking of that track, Autumn Rains, I mean, it's my personal favorite off the record.
Oh, great.
How did that song come about? I mean, you spoke about it being kind of a bit more of a personal song for you. How did that happen? Could you talk a bit about that one?
Well, yeah, just there was just an anniversary 3 years ago. I lost my my younger brother tragically, and I wrote that song fairly soon after it happened, and actually the vocal on it was sang not very long after it happened, and it's not like technically I probably could have sang it better, but when I went to sing it again, it didn't feel right to sing it again, if you know what I mean. So so that was it was a tough time, but a lot of people said it's probably one of the best songs I've ever written. I wish I'd never got to write it, you know. But you know, try and make something beautiful out of a sad situation, I guess, you know, and that's how that song came about, and obviously it's got like this sort of country sort of lilt to it. And I had a friend of mine, Rob Bond, who played some beautiful pedal steel on it. And yeah, it was nice. It's nice to still have that influence in the record, you know, but also be able to try some other stuff as well, you know.
Of course, you know, now you're a frontman as well as a guitarist. What was that like for you, taking that step from, you know, being the guy on the side to the guy right at the front? Was that a little bit daunting? I mean, I'd think, well, you know, like all eyes are on you at that point, aren't they, when you're the guy leading? Well,
to be honest with you, it was I was kind of thrown into it. There wasn't. It was something that had to be done, and there had to be a quick decision made. And there was, I mean, literally the first show I did, I didn't know I was going to be doing that, but I was thrown into it, and we were on Monsters of Rock cruise. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it's like it's every band you can ever imagine from that era, you know, on a cruise ship. And that's when I was hanging out with the guys from Buck Cherry, and you know, but we did the shows, and they went great, and the encouragement I got from people, you know, Chips Enough and Ryan Roxie was on. You know, when we did it, we had in the audience, you know, we had like Buck Cherry, Alice Cooper's band, we had like the Electric Boys.
No pressure, is there?
Oh, you know, it was crazy, you know, and it was just it was really nice, the encouragement that people gave us. You know, it was early days, but we had a lot of gigs we had to do. We had we had tours booked, and that was the reality. You know, we had to I believe in honouring what, you know, the commitments we had, and business wise, you've got to do certain things, you know, and it wasn't easy because I was at that time, like I said, my I'd had the death in my family, and you know there was a lot of tribal stuff, you know. Some people were, you know, it was like 50-50. Yeah. So some people it was you know, people encouraging, and to some other people it was, you know, I was like the devil incarnate or something for some reason. You know, all I was doing was just keeping the band going, you know, and so we did what we had to do. You know, we did two American tours. We did Spain, we did Germany, we did Sweden. You know, we did the Hellfest. You know, we played in front of 60,000 people at Hellfest. You know, on the main stage, and it went great. Am I comfortable being I'm comfortable being being a front man as myself, as I want to be now. As the Black Eyed Sons, I'm a lot more comfortable than being the front man of Quireboys. Let's put it that way, if you know what I mean. It's like I'm not here to be compared with anybody, because it's a different thing. It's a different thing. I come from a different school. You know, you know, it's like when I first joined the Quireboys, Guy Bailey, our other guitar, you know, the other guitar player, founding member, he wasn't very much into the rock stuff at all. You know, he was more the country stuff. He loved Tom Petty, you know, and I got heavily into the Tom Petty stuff through Guy Bailey, and I've always liked front people when they're playing guitar. I've always liked, you know, like Tom Petty or Chrissie Hynde or people like that. You know, where they're you know, they look comfortable, and they're not trying to be sort of showbiz.
Yeah, it's quite relaxed, isn't it?
Yeah. That's kind of my personality. I'm not sort of a look at me, everybody, you know, jumping around sort of thing. But I can front a band. I can do it quite naturally, I think, and I'm comfortable and more comfortable in my own skin nowadays. You know, been through a lot the last few years, and sort of coming out the other side. And yeah, this is a whole new thing. It's a new chapter. You know?
Is there a personal kind of favorite track for you off the album, like one for fans to kind of look out for, or is that kind of like trying to pick your favorite song? I love Autumn Rains, Cowboys in Pinstripe Suits. Is sort of maybe the centerpiece of the album to me. But I really like all of them. I like the songs that Paul's written. The song "Your True Colors" that Paul wrote, and Mike Tramp sings like 80% and 85% of it. You know, it came back to me, and what Mike had done on it, I was like, yeah, I can sing on this, but it's sort of, you know, it's so good, and it put his mark on it. And there was one part of the song where it hadn't sung it quite right in the second half of the bridge part. Just sang it in the wrong
timing or whatever, of the words. So so I said to him, he said, "Oh, well, you just sing it," he says, because he was off on one of his endless tours, and so I just went in and sang the second half of it, and it worked. I think it works quite well, but it's typical of the sort of ethos of this album, where it's more like a collective. I want the record to be a piece of work on its own, not sort of like, here's a new band, it's like we've got some really good people involved with it. Let's utilize everybody's strengths, and highlight everybody's strengths, all the different guests, and it's a real good mixture of people, and different styles.
A question I like to finish on, that I ask every guest that comes on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with one band from the past and one from the present, who would they be? Do you have anybody that that you think, it'd be cool, be interesting to tour with these people?
One band from the past. Well, that is just crazy. We've been, obviously been lucky over the years to some of the hero, the Stones and Aerosmith and even Bowie and stuff like that. But I suppose, funnily enough, I suppose Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers would be, and I guess that would be in the past now. As far as new bands or current bands, I tend to gravitate to a lot of sort of maybe more sort of Americana sort of bands. Whether that would be appropriate for us to tour with or not, I don't know. But I'd love to be able to play with bands like the Jayhawks or someone like that. Those type of. I love the Jayhawks. Just great songwriters. I said we've been lucky to tour. I've been lucky to tour with lots of great artists over the years. Lots and lots. I love, like I said, I love a lot of the American stuff. Some of the sort of country-ish stuff, like Chris Stapleton and stuff. On the rock side, I really dig bands like the Rival Sons or Black Keys. And as far if it was like just to go on tour with a band just to say you toured with them, I guess it would be AC/DC.
Gotta be, isn't it? I mean, if you're just going to go with like
just to say you've done
it. Yeah, they just feel like so massive at this point. It's
or if it was a band in the past, obviously to support AC, both eras are amazing, but I definitely wouldn't want to follow them. That's for certain.
No, I get that, man. Is there, looking back, obviously you mentioned there that you got to tour with some amazing people. Is there any kind of highlight for you where you thought that was special, that was a cool moment? The obvious one would be the Rolling Stones. Huge.
And then getting to meet them afterwards, and I've been lucky in that I've met the Stones a few times, met Keith Richards a few times now, and it's not a disappointment. That was the great thing with playing with even playing with Aerosmith, and I remember Steven Tyler being so kind to our band when we toured with them. And these people are just, like meeting Jimmy. I've met Jimmy Page a few times, and many times actually, and just it's hard to equate that's the same person that you.
Yeah. It's like a different
poster or something, because I think sometimes the bigger the artist, what I've found is like the cooler they are, because they're comfortable in their own skin. They haven't got anything to prove. That usually it's just bands that are just starting out, or got something to prove. Sometimes can have a bit of an attitude, which I'm sure we did. I'm sure the Quireboys went back in the day. We did have a bit of an attitude, and it's the excuse of youth, I guess, and trying to live that rock and roll lifestyle, which now sort of, it's fine when you're 20, when you're in your 20s, but that's a long time ago. That doesn't
feels like it's changed a bit now, isn't it? Like, I think people go, oh, I wonder what they were doing backstage, and you go backstage and they're like drinking tears. It's a different.
Yeah, but I think though I think it's a little bit. It would be a little bit disappointing and a little bit sad if you went backstage and you sit there and you see guys that are in their, knocking on, in their 50s or knocking on 60, trying to
still doing that,
trying to dress and be like they were in 1990. It's like that world doesn't exist anymore, and trying to recreate it. I don't know. It's hard for some people to accept that, and for some followers of bands and stuff, they want the band to be what they saw when they were 18 years old, and they want you to stay that same person that you were. And a lot of bands will do that. They'll entertain people with that, and they'll try and live up to be this persona, or
become a caricature of yourself.
Become a caricature of yourself, and it's I mean, fantastic. Being 20 years old and being in Los Angeles making a record and getting gold records and touring the world and tour buses and all the stuff that comes with it. I look at it now and I just think, well, I was very lucky. I was very lucky to live that life for a bit, because it doesn't really exist anymore. And any of the bands that are successful are very savvy. They're not stumbling around, trying to be Keith Richards.
Quite disciplined now, isn't it? It's like a different.
Yeah. It's like, the Keith Richards isn't even like Keith Richards. He's a very humble, gracious person. There's a lot of people have fallen by the wayside with that lifestyle, and at some point you've got to pay the piper, and you get to a certain age, and if you haven't sort of wised up a bit, it's not gonna end well, But you have to be professional nowadays. I mean, you can't just be flaky. It's a real cutthroat business, and there's not a lot. There isn't as much work around it as there used to be. There's not as much money around as there used to be. People are very fickle with what they listen to or what they look at nowadays.
There's a lot of choice now, isn't there? It's with the internet, there's so much out there.
Yeah, you just got to. I think all you can do when you're creating something is just try and, first of all, please yourself. Make something that you can sort of hopefully be proud of, and hopefully then and authentic with another. Then hopefully people will feel that and buy into it, and want to continue on, sort of the journey that you take with it.
I think that's the key there now. I think, that's what people look for. I hear people now talking about, they want something genuine, they want something real. And I think if you're going for something that you feel is your true self, that's who you are. I think people, you can't help but respond to that. You know what I mean? You want to be on board with that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and the artists that have managed to sort of keep working and stand the test of time are people that have been hard, have worked hard at it, but also stayed true. Maybe not compromise too much. I mean, everybody you have to compromise in any business to a certain extent, but you know, if the music you've created you're happy with and how you present it. I mean, obviously, you've got to present, you've got to do a video, you've got to do a album artwork and stuff, and they're all as they're almost all as important as the music, because music's worth nothing if you can't get people to listen to it or make it attractive or to people. The hardest thing is just getting people to actually hear stuff now. Monetizing it is just another, that's just, if anybody's knows the answer to that, they'll please tell me.
I know what you mean. The world of Spotify with unbelievable, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, Pandora's box was opened a long time ago, and and you can't close the lid. So it's just, unfortunately, it's the musicians that have suffered once again. The record companies missed the trick, but then they just bought into all the platforms, so they're making more money than ever, out of the streaming. Whereas the artists are, we're making 0.00005 pence or something.
It's your work, yeah.
You can't make songwriting used to be such a huge thing, and would cause so much rancor within bands and stuff, because that was the pot of gold, with publishing deals and when people would sell millions of records, but it really doesn't mean anything now. It's just a name on the track, unless you get something in a TV show or a movie or something. But I think to people of my sort of generation, records are still important. Albums are still important. The format is still a format that makes sense. The 8 songs or the 10-song album, and I think people still like to buy a CD at a gig or a vinyl. They may not even play it, but it's just
but you want to hold it in your hand, right? You want that.
Read it whilst they're listening to it on their on their phone or whatever. That's the thing. You spend all this time like listening to to mixes and through these big speakers, and then people
someone's phone
through the end of a phone.
I mean, obviously the albums, I assume it's available on, it will be available on vinyl.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be available, I think, I believe on gatefold vinyl. Don't ask me when the vinyl will be out, because I'll get all sorts of mail and stuff when people I haven't got our vinyl yet. I don't make the vinyl. It's like the vinyl's always a few months after, invariably, after the CD, but and obviously the record will be available on all platforms in January, end of January, but 31st, I believe. And we've got a single out at the moment called Fooling Yourself, and there's a video you can see on YouTube, and we'll probably put another single out before the end of this year, and then the album comes out the end of January, and we've got a show, kind of like a debut show, really.
I'm going to say an album launch show / debut show. It's I might as well advertise it. December the 16th.
Yeah,
go for it.
December the 16th, at a venue called the Lexington, which is on the Pentonville Road up near Islington, which is a really nice venue. I've only played there once before. I played there. I was playing guitar with Brian James from The Damned. I thought, wow, this is a really nice venue. So yeah, we'll be playing there, and hopefully we'll see a few people there. And I keep saying that we're a new band with a long history, basically.
Yes. No, I think it's a great thing. You know, it feels when you guys first started releasing this kind of new era, it felt like there was a real buzz again. You know, there's this excitement. You know, I saw obviously, I think it was a week or so ago. You know, you guys getting airtime on Planet Rock. You know, obviously Joe Elliott saying about you guys, and it just feels. It feels like there's this wave of positivity again, and I love seeing that. You know, it's just
yeah. I think so. You're right. I think it's nice you say that, because there's been. It's easy to sort of get bogged down in the negativity and you know, in the world of social media, how it works.
Yeah.
How it works. Everybody's probably, you
got to be here or over here. You can't be. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very polarized, and it. You know, you try not to take anything too personally, but you know, we're only human. You know what I mean? And it is like just a weight off our shoulders, just to go. You know what? Let's just move forward. You know, this, you know, legalities and things like that. You know,
not worth it.
It's not worth it. I can still use the name. I'm still paying the bills on it every month, so I know I can still, you know, use the name. But that's not the point. The point is, you know, life's too short. You know, I just want to make music and enjoy playing music again. I think this is going to give us the chance to, you know, start doing that again after a tough sort of couple of years. You know.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. Of course, for those that want to pre-order the album in whatever form it may be, whenever the vinyl will come out, it's available in the link in the description below. And I'll also link for some tickets for that launch party / debut show. I'm sure there'll be many people looking forward to seeing that. Well, thank you very much, Guy. I really appreciate your time.
And you, thanks for having me. It's an honour to be on your podcast. I've watched a couple of your.
Oh, thank you.